Alrighty, so the next topic that we have is the moral problem. This is different than the philosophical conflict. I want to be very clear about the differences between them. So the moral problem really comes down to philosophy. And like we said in the last video, everything is about character choice. So the moral problem is how you actually progress a character's arc over the course of the story. So the most important part of the moral problem is that you need a flawed protagonist, okay? All human beings are flawed. I'm flawed. Every person that's ever lived is flawed. That's life, okay? And what life really is breaking through your layers of flaws in order to become a higher and higher version of yourself, to actually create a life that is better for not only you, but the world, if you're on the positive end, and if you're on the negative end, I guess ending in tragedy and horrific failure. So this is really ultimately what the moral problem comes down to, is you can have a happy ending or you can have a sad ending, and I'll go through the differences between them. The first and most important thing that you need to know is the lie that your character believes. What do they believe about life, about the way things work, that is just so false? Okay, so I'll give you an example. If you look at somebody like Spider-Man, or honestly most superheroes, the lie they believe is that they want a normal life. We look at Spider-Man, what is the actual opposite of that? The truth. The truth is, with great power comes great responsibility. It's the core moral of the story. So the character doesn't believe it, and then eventually he does. Now that's a positive change arc. We'll get into the differences between the specifics long term. Let's look at another lie, okay? We look at Ebenezer Scrooge in The Christmas Carol. Ebenezer Scrooge believes that money is all that matters in life. It's the only thing that matters. And what has it done throughout the course of his life? Well, it's made him incredibly depressed. It's made him incredibly miserable his whole life. So if he hates his life, it's because of this lie, okay? And honestly, what I would say to anybody out there looking to not only write, but to improve your own life as well, look at your own self, look at your own life. What are some things you believe about life and about the world around you and about yourself that are hindering you from actually growing and hindering you from making things better for yourself and to connect with other people and to build a better life, okay? So ultimately, the lie that your character believes, if you're ending positively, becomes the truth. So what does Ebenezer Scrooge learn at the end of the day? He learns, hey, guess what? If I connect with people and love people, love where I am now, not care all about money, but care more about the experience and sharing with the community around me, my life improves. That is the truth. That's how a story ends happily. Now, if a story wants to end negatively, in a negative sense, you ignore this part. You should know what it is for your sake as the writer, but the character commits to the lie. They stick with it, okay? Now, this all being said, I want to very much clarify how this goes. So if we look at the course of your story as a timeline, okay? And I'm not speaking as like this event, then this event, then this event. I'm speaking more of just like if we look at the film or the story from the beginning through to the end, okay? The beginning of the story, we start here and it goes all the way to the end. Now, whether in the timeline of things, okay, so say this is the timeline, meaning in 1994, this happens, and then we jump to, say, 2005, and then we go back to 1996. I'm not speaking this. The story does go A, B, C, so A, B, C, but even though it should go A, C, B, if that makes sense, okay? That's the timeline. I'm speaking not of this, but instead of plot points. Runtime 10 minutes is here. 60 minutes is here. And at the end of it is, say, I don't know, 110 minutes, okay? If we're looking at a screenplay. And now if you're looking at a novel, you can just increase this. What page count are you on? Whatever number you think in that way, okay? So a great moral problem focuses on the lie. So the character starts here, and they believe their lie. No matter what version you do, the positive or the negative, they're adamant about their lie. They believe it fervently. Okay, we look at the Ebenezer Scrooge example. He believes adamantly that money is the only thing that matters in life. It is the only thing that he ever wants to do. And it's the only thing he ever focuses on. So what does he do? He nickel and dimes Bob Cratchit. He starts treating people who are asking for charitable donations poorly, even though it's Christmas season. Okay? Because he believes his lie. He believes that money is what's most important. Okay? And this is a great story because this one does actually bounce in the timeline. So it's good to notice this because even though he's moving with this time, it does go back to his past and to his future and to the present day. So it's not really about that, but he sticks with the lie. Now, over the course of the story, if we stick with the Ebenezer Scrooge one, which will be a positive change arc, you'll see it ends positively. But he keeps sticking with the lie. Every scene, one by one, creates the same lie. Okay? It just keeps going over and over and over and over and over and over until when he finds himself dead. It shocks him. He looks at his grave and he sees that nobody really loves him and nobody really cares about him. Okay? That's his demise. It's the lowest of his low. Many writers call it the all is lost moment. He gets to his lowest low. He's alive because he's only seeing a premonition of his future, but he sees how people react and it really breaks his heart. So he has to do one of two things. If he changes and becomes a better person, it's a positive change arc. And if he doesn't change and he commits even harder, it's a negative change arc. And I'll give you another example of a negative change arc. But this one specifically is a positive change arc. He changes. At the end of it, he sticks with the truth when he wakes up after the spirits. He goes, you know what? I'm going to be different. Here's some money to this kid to go buy a turkey, okay? Do it for your family. Make your life easier because I have the money to provide to make your life easier. He now becomes more joyful and more happy because he is now connecting with the world around him, okay? Now, let's change this and let's now look at the Godfather, okay? At the beginning of the story, you have Michael Corleone, who's a little more even-keeled, to be honest, okay? Now, what Michael believes, the lie that he believes, is that he can control power without becoming corrupt. Okay? So he can control power without becoming corrupt. That's what he believes. This is what when he's at the wedding at the very beginning of the movie, he's talking to his, I believe it's his wife, but he's very much emphasizing this. He can become powerful and not become corrupt. And then we get, by the way, there's spoilers if you didn't figure it out. We get all the way to the midpoint of the story. Now, we'll talk about midpoints and the significance of a midpoint and why it's super, super important. But for now, I want people to understand why this moment is so important. And it's one of the most famous scenes in all of film history. Michael is at a dinner and he is choosing whether or not to assassinate one of his political adversaries. And he really processes it and thinks about it and really meanders it. And then he gets up and he shoots him and he kills him, okay? So if we're looking at this, he believes this lie. So if this is the chart of things getting better, like so life improves, and this is time, from here to here, his life, he's being able to convince himself of this lie, okay? He can control power without corruption. And now we're at the midpoint, and that whole thing shifts, and he starts becoming more of a negative person. So what's the truth of the story? The truth is that power corrupts. So what happens over the rest of the story? He becomes his father, or the Godfather, if you will, okay? Now, I'll go into the individual character arcs and different things like that, but this is what you want to do with your story. The very first step that you want to do is you want to decide if this is your timeline, okay, of your story, your main character, and you should focus on one main character unless you've done this multiple times and you can do this simultaneously with two different characters bouncing back and forth. I wouldn't push past more than two characters that are following this. It's very easy to keep this with one character. It's a little more fluid. When you start becoming more in depth with your writing and more practice, then you can add new characters with more depth. But they believe a lie, whatever the lie is, so just come up with one, I guess. But you should know what the truth is instead, okay? So if the lie is just something really basic, I'm unloved, nobody loves me. Now, what's the truth? Well, someone loves him or her, loves them, okay? So your options ultimately over the course of the story are to showcase this. So in this scene right here, he or she, the main character, believes this lie. Now they're going to be shown something from life that is actually the truth. So maybe, let's just use male, because I'm a male, okay? So he goes to the next scene, and his mom comes over and expresses her love for him, expresses different ways that she loves him. Maybe she's being too kind, or maybe she's being caring and trying to see if his life can get better in different ways. And what does he do? Oh, well, he believes that he's unloved, so he reacts, he responds, and he goes, see how you don't do this, see how you don't do that, blames them. The lie becomes stronger. So when the lie becomes stronger, it becomes more solidified. Then we go to the next scene, okay? He still thinks he's unloved. We do the same thing. Somebody shows him love. Maybe this girl has a huge crush on him, but maybe that girl who has a crush on him isn't the one he's thinking about. Maybe it's some other girl who doesn't actually love him. So what does that emphasize? Okay, this one girl doesn't love me, and oh, the one girl who does love me is not what I always wanted. So look, I am unloved. We do it again. Now, he meets an old man who's homeless, who really needs help. What does he really do? Okay, well, look, this guy's a loser who's complaining. He starts insulting him. He starts critiquing him, maybe unintentionally at first. Maybe he just says something like, look, the rest of us have to work to make our living. And the homeless man takes a lot of offense to it and starts insulting him and critiquing him and really saying things that hurt his feelings genuinely. So again, the belief becomes stronger and bigger. And so long as you stick with a negative change arc, each time this happens, the belief solidifies further, okay? Okay? Now, if you want to create a positive change arc, at some point in these massive circles where they keep getting bigger and 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 bigger, okay? We get to the all is lost moment where everything just goes terribly wrong. And we look at the Scrooge story, it's when he sees himself dead. Every story that does this that's strong does this very well. They find this moment and hit it really hard. So the character is destroyed and has nothing and doesn't feel good, and nothing of their life is improving. So if we have a positive change arc, they decide to change. They don't repeat this cycle, and instead they start a new one. Okay? With a new belief system that's closer to the truth. Maybe he goes and says that he loves his mom, who loved him at the beginning. Maybe he goes after the girl who liked him in the first place. Maybe she doesn't like him back anymore, but at least he attempted to be honest. Okay? These are some different small examples. With a positive change arc, when you switch that and you come to the ending, when you do this well, you get phenomenal endings like The Truman Show. you get phenomenal endings. Apologies. That is everything, I guess, for this lesson. I didn't mean for that to happen, but if you could just like and subscribe, I will be posting another video very, very shortly, and get to writing, everybody. Good luck.